Welcome to the Korea Pro Podcast, your weekly guide to understanding the most pressing and complicated developments shaping South Korea. We're your hosts, Jungmin Kim,
John Lei,
and Joon Ha Park of Korea Pro.
Go beyond headlines as we explain not just what happened, but also what really matters and why it matters.
If you monitor South Korea for work or just trying to keep up, you're in the right place.
This is the Korea Pro Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to a new episode of the Korea Pro Podcast. It is now Thursday, December 4th, a little bit after 5 p.m. A year ago today, many of us were at home late at night watching TV, or some of us were in the gym, and suddenly we saw this headline on the TV, President declares martial law. Where were you at the time?
Right, so as you mentioned, I was at the gym. We were expecting just a normal Tuesday evening. I was expecting to just finish at the treadmill, go back home, and just finish the day. But of course, he declared martial law, and it was very unprecedented. It came to a lot of shock to the entire journalist cohort at NK News and Korea Pro. And I think everyone logged on at the same time, just frantically messaging each other on what best we should do. Eventually, of course, we reported on the martial law. Jungmin went to the National Assembly and was a champ there as well.
Yeah, I wasn't at the gym. I don't do treadmills because, I'm not a hamster. But yeah, I was at home.
Wow,
and
John. Okay.
just calling it as it is. But yeah, was at home, saw the headline, and you ran straight over to where did you go? You went to the PPP headquarters. You went to the National Assembly.
No. I was monitoring from home.
Okay, you're monitoring from home. Jungmin went to the National Assembly. I came straight to the office. And sure, it was a year ago, but it doesn't feel like a year ago because we've been living with it constantly for the past year.
Right. So it is something that's still very much in the national psyche. It is something that really does make up the political makeup here. We saw it just yesterday, actually. Me and Lena were at the protests in front of the National Assembly.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah, starting from 7 p.m. We were quite shocked to see how many people actually showed up to the anti-Yoon protests in front of the National Assembly, which was just adjacent to the entrance. Also, about a couple of meters away, we saw some police, right behind the police blockade, we saw a crowd of pro-Yoon protesters who were wielding U.S. and ROC flags, screaming election fraud, Yoon again, and all of these different slogans that come out. And I think we were quite taken aback as to how it was a representation of how the countries' political divisions are still at play here.
Okay, so let's keep in mind that it was freezing cold outside last night. And yes, we expected there to be people, and you were there, and as with Lena, and you guys pointed out that there were a lot of people there. But that being said, I knew that there was going to be a huge protest there, but, I didn't go. You wouldn't be able to catch me going there even if my life depended on it because, it's cold and it's late and I want to go home. And so I'm bringing this up because, sure, we've got the diehards out there. We've got the people who are really into Yoon, who wants him to come back to the presidency.
Right.
And then we've got those people who really don't want them to come back, that they were the insurrectionists. But these are the diehards. What about the rest of the country? Are we as evenly 50% split? Or is there a significant portion of the people who are staying at home just tired of the whole thing? What's going on?
Well, you can only look at the polls and what's there readily available in terms of how we can analyze how South Korean society is actually feeling about martial law. What we found from polls by Gallup Korea that were commissioned by 중앙일보, we saw that South Koreans still view martial law as something that was a bad thing. Something that I think about 63 or 64% still viewed it as an act of insurrection. But of course, that leaves the other side up, I think about 29 to 30% who still believe that martial law was a good thing. So it is something that's very much topsy-turvy. There's not really much unity in terms of how we can view martial law going forward. But from the people that we've spoken to, they do see martial law as something that's equating to insurrection.
Now, I don't know if you remember this meme back in the day, but there was this whole hubbub about this dress, whether it was a blue dress or whether it was a white dress.
Yeah.
You remember that meme,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now that split 50-50. Some people saying it was blue, some people saying that it was white. I was at the white camp, by the way. But, that's about the subjective perception of color.
Right.
What we're talking about here is the usurpation of democracy.
Exactly.
And the fact that only 60% of the country thinks that, yeah, that was a bad thing to do. And the rest of the country is saying, yeah, maybe, maybe not. That is depressing. And so, okay, we've talked about all of these martial law declarations and all of these investigations. The president was saying that the revolution of light is still ongoing,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. And the special probes, as I believe that December 14th is the final deadline as to when they have to make all of their final decisions and findings. But, even if all of that is procedurally done, what law could possibly mandate the public to say, hey, here's how we should all be looking at this in this one way?
Well, there's no real law. It's
just not possible.
The only thing that the public can do is, of course, look at the Constitutional Court's April 4th decision to impeach Yoon, where they did say explicitly and in clear form that Yoon's martial law was unconstitutional.
Yeah, but, this week, Tungmin wrote this analysis about what's going on within the PPP, the main opposition People Power Party.
Yeah.
And yes, as you also pointed out in today's analysis, there was a faction within the party that apologized, although it wasn't the leadership. But in Tungmin's analysis, she pointed out how one People Power Party lawmaker went on stage in Daegu and said that, yeah, martial law was a bad thing. It was unconstitutional. That's not a controversial statement. That's the very same thing that the Constitutional Court said.
Exactly, yeah.
But because she said that, people at the crowd started hurling projectiles at her.
Yeah. So this is, as your tone of voice mentions too, it is a very concerning thing that's coming from the political right of the country. We've seen through, I think it was MBrain Public who did a poll as well on South Korean conservatives who were viewing martial law, and especially PPP voters who are how they view martial law. And I think it was about 68% roughly that believed that martial law was 적절, which means that
appropriate.
Appropriate. And also, I think it was about 77% who believed that the PPP should not apologize for their role in martial law, if there was a role.
And this is the world that we're living in, where we no longer share the same sense of reality, folks.
And then just moving on. So in terms of actual bipartisan...
Just moving on, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. In terms of actual bipartisan stuff, so we had the 2026 budget bill that was passed. I believe it was the first on-time bill passing since 2020. What's the significance of that?
Well, yeah, it was bipartisan, and yeah, it was the first that got passed within the legal deadline.
Okay.
They're all technically true. But, another way of putting this is saying that the PPP just rolled over and said, Uncle, stop hitting me.
Oh, Jesus.
And that's basically what happened. If you look at the PPP statements, what they said was, yes, we had a victory because we prevented the Democratic Party from raising the budget bill, the budget even higher. Well, bravo. Good for you. Do you want a cookie? They raised the corporate tax rates. They raised the education tax for financial institutions. They got nothing done. They're supposed to be the party of low taxes. And what did they do? They rolled over and cried uncle and said, Mommy, please.
Oh, your reservations for the PPP are not in wrapping. So what was the sort of National Growth Fund? You wrote about this in your executive briefing.
Okay, so turning over to a bit more of a serious matter, yeah, that actually really matters. So this was something that the Democratic Party really fought for. And this is because this was President Lee's signature industrial bill. What he wants to do is that over the next 5 years, he wants to attract 150 trillion won into this fund.
Sure.
That's about $102 billion, give or take, because of the exchange rates and everything. And the idea is to get the public sector to finance half of it, 75 trillion won, and the private sector to fund the other half. And using this massive fund for the next 5 years, the government wants to invest in things like AI, semiconductors, biohealth, the usual sectors, right? And this all seems like a great idea. That's fine and dandy. But here's where the problem comes in.
There's a catch.
Oh, yeah. Because remember how I just said that it's the public sector that's funding it? Well, a lot of that funding, a lot of that underwriting will come from the Korea Development Bank.
Right.
And that is the state-run bank. And sure, the Korea Development Bank should be able to afford it, ideally, but it's not under ideal circumstances because the Korea Development Bank already holds a lot of public debt. Just for example, if we're talking about the state utility, KEPCO, the Korea Electric Power Corporation, the KDB owns, I believe, about 33 to 34% of a stake in that public utility company. And that company's been bleeding billions of dollars for years now. And that's what the KDB has been in charge of for years already. And on top of that, the KDB is supposed to be underwriting another 75 trillion won worth of public expenditures to help mitigate losses for these industries, to invest in AI and semiconductors.
Sure, yeah.
We are potentially looking at the KDB potentially having a credit downgrade.
Right.
And if the state-run bank has a credit downgrade, that's not that far out from the country having a credit downgrade.
Right.
So that's a really big thing that is really concerning me personally. All right, but that's just my take on the budget. Now, obviously, you've been focusing a lot on the defense sector and how this country is trying to prop up its defense spending. What's the budget looking like for the Ministry of National Defense?
Right. So the total budget, the headline figure is 65.86 trillion won. So that's $44.8 billion. That's a 7.5% increase from 2025, which the government did originally request. I think it was 8.2% increase, but it was cut by the National Assembly. It's the sharpest rise in 7 years still. It exceeds the 2020 7.4 under President Moon Jae-in. So they did cut 430.5 billion won, around about $293 million from the original request. So the budget breakdown goes where force operations, about $31.2 billion will be allocated to there. So it covers personnel, readiness, maintenance costs, and then force improvement, which is the catch, where it covers weapons procurement and modernization. Around about $13.6 billion will be included here. There's not really clarity on whether this budget does include the $33 billion that were promised.
That was going to be my question.
That were promised to U.S. Forces Korea in the joint fact sheet, and also the procurement of U.S.-made weapons, which I think it was around about 25 billion, I think. So there's not really much clarity on what the defense budget actually gives for that in terms of U.S. ROC commitments. But of course, it does detail the 3-axis defense system and how they'll upgrade that. So I think it's about $6 billion for the total, where Kill Chain, the preemptive strike system, they'll have an initial mass production of the KF-21 fighter jet, which they'll allocate about 5 trillion won, about $3.5 billion. And then for KMD, KMPR, they'll have about, I think, about 1.5 billion altogether.
Okay, so that was a lot of numbers right over there. But as soon as I look at all of these numbers, and as soon as I look at all of these internal press briefings that are released by the finance ministry and the defense ministry, this budget is just all smoke and mirrors. The finance minister was saying that, oh, yeah, it's true. We didn't really raise the budget beyond what was already initially proposed. Our debt to GDP ratio is only like 4% or something like that. But, as I mentioned, they don't really talk about the KDB having to underwrite 75 trillion won worth of money for this National Growth Fund. And as you also pointed out, this entire defense budget also doesn't mention the $33 billion that is supposed to be going to the USFK.
Right.
And this is all just... It reminds me of, I'm not sure how to put this without getting myself into legal trouble, so let me put it in a way that's got to be a little safer. It feels like voodoo magic.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't know if that actually went to the goal that you wanted to go for, but I think that the budget, there's a lot for the government to still answer for, including what we've just mentioned, but also including as to how they'll actually move forward. Like, for example, the defense budget, it has a section that's entirely dedicated to the drone warriors training program. So the 500,000 drone warriors that I wrote about earlier this year, I think they're allocating about 5.84 trillion won to defense R&D for that, especially procuring about, I think, 11,000 commercial drones, and for the individual training of these drone warrior, quote, soldiers. So it's still something that's very unclear at the moment.
Okay.
Moving on, the Coupang data leak, which was quite the news to start the week. I think it was about 33.7 million. That's over half the country in terms of populatory numbers. So what happened there?
You know, I just want to say that South Korea is really the most transparent country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're talking about our shopping habits, our addresses, our phone numbers, our shopping orders, or whether we're talking about our telecommunication information, whether we're talking about our military information, whether we're talking about, anything that should be encrypted. We just let anyone who wants it have access to it. And we are so transparent, so democratic, so open with the entire world that I think really South Korea is the model country that everyone should try to emulate, because we are the symbol of perfection.
Thank you for that, John. So what really happened?
Well, I'm trying to be serious here, but as I said, our phone numbers, our addresses, our shopping habits, they're all out there. Now, we're not exactly sure what happened. The investigations are still ongoing, but they're all saying that they suspect a Chinese national to have somehow breached into their servers and just revealed everything from June to November. So for 5 months, all of the data was just out there. And now we don't know if this person was actually responsible. There's still an investigation going on. And, even if they find unimpeachable evidence that this person was actually responsible, what are we going to do about it? The person's no longer in South Korea, and I presume that this person is currently in China. What are we going to do? To just ask a Chinese to send them over? They're not going to do that. And this just goes to show you I said this in a joking manner, but this country has a very long history of not taking cybersecurity seriously.
Right. So you wrote an analysis about this, the implications of its effect on the Lee administration's signature Online Platform Monopoly Regulation Act.
Yeah, that law is not happening. And it's not happening because the government itself admitted that it just cannot do it under American pressure. We just had this massive tariff agreement. And one of the things that the Donald Trump administration has been repeatedly saying is that it counts non-tariff barriers as tariffs. And so, regarding this platform regulation law that that the Democratic Party had proposed for a long time now, the United States government is going to say, "Hey, these are going to unfairly target American online companies. So this is a tariff, and this contravenes what the agreement was. So it's war." And that's that's a potential direction. And so what is likely going to happen is that South Korea is going to weaponize existing laws, especially the PIPA, which stands for the Personal Information Protection Act. Now, this law is going to be the thing that is going to serve as the South Korean government's cudgel, really. And because what this law basically says is that if any company really doesn't take care of its internet data, its customer data, and just happens to lose them, then the government can fine them 3% of their total revenues.
Right.
Now, if we go back to their numbers, to their public official statements, Coupang made $30.3 billion in revenue in 2024.
Yeah.
So presumably Coupang made even more money than that this year. But if we go by the 2024 numbers, 3% of that, they are looking at almost $1 billion fine here. And so this is going to be a massive thing. And it's not just Piper that we're looking at. We're also looking at potential class action lawsuits. Now, there have already been some, I think about a dozen or 14 people or so who filed a class action lawsuit. Now, because of the way lawsuits and the demand for compensation is a bit more limited in South Korea, individuals cannot demand too much money. I believe each of those plaintiffs were asking for 200,000 won. That's like $150 per person. And that's chump change. Coupang can afford that. But, this is potentially going to get even larger as more and more information comes out from these investigations.
Looking to stay informed about South Korea's fast-evolving political, business and cultural landscape? Join us on Korea Pro, the go-to resource for in-depth analysis expertly curated by top-tier professionals. And now you can pick the membership level that best suits your needs, thanks to our new subscription packages. Starting at just $199 annually, you can access daily analysis and our weekly podcast. Or try our premium membership package, which offers additional perks such as executive briefings, monthly reports and forecasts, networking receptions and event opportunities, as well as much, much more. To find the best fit for you, just head to signup.koreapro.org and become a member today.
But okay, I'm tapped out. Joon, what's going on next week?
Right, so as we mentioned earlier in this podcast, we'll have the special counsel for investigating the December 3rd martial law attempt. It will end all of its probing. I believe it's next Sunday on December 14th. And then right after that, I believe trials will go on until January, and then a final ruling in February.
Okay, and all of this information will be sent out to your email inbox by 2 p.m. via the Week Ahead newsletter. So if you'd like to know more, please subscribe. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We'll brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why it matters, delivered to your inbox every morning.
If you want to stay ahead of the curve, sign up for Korea Pro to get a full package of insights, from daily expert analysis to profiles, month in review, week ahead, and more.
And until next time, I'm Jungmin Kim.
I'm Joon Ha.
And I'm John Lee, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.